Welcome to a production from the Luke Waits Center for Dyslexia and Learning Disorders, located at Scottish Rite for Children's Dallas campus.
Hello, welcome to Dyslexia 411. I'm so happy you're joining today. My name is Dr. Debi Buchanan, and I'm the Administrative Director for the Luke Waits Center for Dyslexia and Learning Disorders at Scottish Rite for Children. Scottish Rite for Children is one of the nation's leading pediatric centers for the treatment of orthopedic conditions and certain related neurological disorders and learning disorders, including dyslexia. We have campuses in Dallas, Frisco, and the Star in Frisco. Dr. Luke Waits, our founder, was asked to participate in a neurology clinic in the mid-1960s. He agreed to support the hospital's neurology needs if he could bring his existing dyslexia clinic along with him. We have been a part of the Scottish Rite family ever since 1965. Our department is made up of a variety of folks, including dyslexia training for students and teachers, research, outreach, and of course, diagnostics. The Center for Dyslexia offers services when there will be a difference in the educational outcome of a child with academic problems. We also have the opportunity to address comorbid or coexisting mental health diagnoses, ADHD, anxiety, depression, etc., in the context of the evaluation as long as the primary concern is academics. You should know that all the information contained in this presentation aligns with the revised 2024 TEA Dyslexia Handbook. Let's begin by talking about the importance of reading. Reading is the fundamental skill upon which all formal education depends. A child who does not learn to read early and well will struggle to master other skills and knowledge. There are many things to learn about dyslexia, but today we're going to look at what is dyslexia, the dyslexia evaluation, dyslexia intervention, possible dyslexia accommodations, and how you can help your child at home. We are going to watch a video of a young girl who has dyslexia. We will have the privilege of seeing the before and the after of effective intervention. The before will probably feel a little uncomfortable, but in a few slides, we will be able to see the outcome of her intervention.
Sat on top of Tim. The big book. Bug took bit.
That was hard, wasn't it? What are some things you notice about her as she is attempting to read? Lack of confidence, physical adjusting to feel more comfortable, looking over the page to get some context clues. Do you think she's retained much of the information she read? So, what is dyslexia? We are going to start with a pop quiz. You can participate at home. Writing letters and words backwards is a symptom of dyslexia. What do you think? It's not. Writing letters and words backwards is not a symptom of dyslexia. And this is one of the most frequent and enduring misconceptions related to dyslexia, as well as being one of our most frequently asked and answered parent questions. This misperception began with Samuel Orton in the 1920s when he first reported a link between dyslexia and reversals. Since that time, there have been many research studies that have noted letter reversals are hardly distinctive to dyslexia. Backwards writing also is common in the early stages of learning to read and write, especially through the ages of 7. It is a sign that orthographic representations have not yet been firmly established. If you think about it, saying reversals are a primary feature of dyslexia could be harmful to the child with dyslexia who doesn't reverse. Reading disorders are caused by visual perception problems. It is not a vision problem. Dyslexia is a language sound processing problem, not a visual processing issue. In an article published in May 2015 in the Pediatrics Journal, researchers at the University of Bristol and Newcastle in the United Kingdom tested more than 5,800 children ages 7 to 9 years old for a variety of vision challenges. The 3% with severe and 8% with moderate dyslexia had little differences in their vision compared to kids without dyslexia. The majority of kiddos with dyslexia had perfect vision on the tests. Okay, boys and girls are equally likely to have dyslexia. Same number affected. Research indicates behavioral problems and more difficulty compensating in boys may lead to greater incidence of identification. Children will outgrow dyslexia if you give them enough time. Evidence indicates continued persistent deficits in reading and spelling without appropriate intervention. Because dyslexia is brain-based and developmental, it continues into adulthood. Effective intensive dyslexia programming can provide extensive skills and tools to help the child cope, learn, and succeed. While many people with dyslexia will learn to read accurately, they may continue to read slowly. Spelling can also be an ongoing challenge. Dyslexia only affects people who speak or read in English. No, dyslexia is apparent in all cultures with written language, including those that do not use an alphabetic script, like Chinese. Colored overlays and/or prism lenses are not beneficial when treating dyslexia. That's true. There is no scientific research-based evidence that indicates overlays or lenses have any effect on word reading or comprehension. A child with dyslexia can never learn to read. That is absolutely not true. The earlier they are identified and provided systematic instruction, the less severe their problems are likely to be as they progress. Some children with dyslexia will become fantastic readers with the right intervention. Others, as mentioned a second ago, will continue to read more slowly. So let's talk a little more about what dyslexia is and is not. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language that is often unexpected in relation to other abilities, and the provision of effective classroom instruction. Secondary consequences may include problems in reading comprehension and difficulties with aspects of written language. Reduced reading experience can also impede the growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. So let's explore this definition further. Dyslexia is neurobiological in origin, meaning that it is a brain-based disorder. When a person has dyslexia, their brain works differently when reading. These structural and neural differences make it more difficult for people with dyslexia to read, spell, and write. Early post-mortem biopsy studies and more recent functional brain imaging research suggest that brain regions that are involved in word recognition have different structure, function, and connections in individuals with dyslexia. Specifically, additional imaging has shown a failure of the left hemisphere posterior brain systems to function properly during reading, as there is little to no activation in left side of the brain. Neurobiological differences that lead to dyslexia appear to be present early in development and before reading instruction is provided. It is also important to note that recent studies reveal the whole spectrum of reading disabilities is strongly determined by genetic predispositions. Heritability rates of dyslexia range from 35 to 50%. Therefore, if a parent has dyslexia, then there is a chance the child may also have dyslexia. Characteristics of dyslexia include difficulty reading words in isolation, difficulty decoding or sounding out unknown or nonsense words, inaccurate and/or labored oral reading fluency, difficulty with spelling, difficulty spelling common words, and following spelling rules and patterns. Difficulties in reading and spelling typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language, or the sound system of our language. Phonological awareness reflects an understanding that the words we see and hear are a sound-based structure. For example, when we read the word sit, we know that the letter S makes the S sound, I makes the I sound, and the T makes the T sound. And when we blend these sounds together, we get the word sit. Research has shown us that when a child shows weaknesses in phonological awareness, they have difficulty acquiring basic reading skills as they do not understand the relationship between sounds and printed letters and words. Deficits in phonology are the strongest and most specific findings related to dyslexia. Dyslexia is also unexpected in relation to the student's other abilities, sociocultural factors, language difference, school attendance, and/or lack of appropriate and effective instruction. In other words, it's a surprise when this child struggles to read. The Dyslexia Handbook says it is not one single indicator, but a preponderance of data, both informal and formal, that provides evidence for whether these difficulties are unexpected. Children with dyslexia can often understand the stories read aloud to them, show appropriate or strong reasoning abilities, have adequate vocabulary and language skills, excel in math or other academic areas, be imaginative and creative, but struggle with the process of reading and spelling. Secondary consequences of dyslexia may include problems in reading comprehension. A child with dyslexia may be so focused on reading words correctly that they are not attending to the overall meaning of and/or information in a passage. Additionally, their reading errors may also alter the meaning of the text, which can impact accurate comprehension of the material. Children with dyslexia also experience difficulties with aspects of written language. While children with dyslexia may have great oral storytelling abilities and/or be able to communicate understanding of information orally, they often have a hard time communicating their ideas through written expression due to spelling difficulties. Children with dyslexia may use more simplistic vocabulary words and/or only the words they know how to spell when writing. Also, children with dyslexia often avoid reading tasks, whether it's for school and/or for pleasure. This reduced reading experience can impede the growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. Children with dyslexia may read less and often progress slower in reading development compared to their classmates. So how prevalent is dyslexia? Well, researchers tell us between 5 and 17.3% of the population has dyslexia, and dyslexia is the most common cause of reading and spelling difficulties. Okay, let's look at what is involved in a dyslexia evaluation. These are the guidelines that are used in Texas for a formal dyslexia assessment: the Texas Education Code, the Texas Administrative Code, Federal Law Section 504, and Federal Law Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. Here are the procedures from Texas Education Agency on when to refer for a dyslexia evaluation and the steps that are to be followed. If at any point a student is suspected of having dyslexia, then additional information must be collected and reviewed. If in fact the data supports that the child may be exhibiting characteristics of dyslexia, then the administrators and evaluation specialists at the school will seek parental consent for a full individual and initial evaluation for special education. Once parental consent is provided for the FIIE, then the school will conduct a formal evaluation using a variety of tools and measures to determine if the child has dyslexia and if they require specially designed instruction to support their learning needs. If evaluation data supports the identification of dyslexia and the need for evidence-based dyslexia instruction, then the child is eligible for special education and related services as provided through an individual education program. These areas should be assessed as part of the evaluation for dyslexia. The evaluation procedures and measures chosen will vary based on the individual child and his or her age, evaluation history, and his or her specific academic concerns. Evaluation information will likely include both formal and informal measures, as well as incorporate the child's benchmark performance, teacher's information, parent information, and a review of the child's specific educational and intervention history. When a student is evaluated under IDEA, the evaluation must be completed within 45 school days after the district or school receives written consent from the parent. Once the evaluation is completed, the school has 30 calendar days to hold an admission, review, and dismissal, or ARD committee meeting. The ARD committee reviews the evaluation results and determines if the student is eligible for special education services. In Texas, it is the ARD committee that makes decisions about the child's eligibility for special education services and determines the accommodations and services that will be included on the child's individualized education program, or IEP. And the ARD committee must consist of people who are knowledgeable about the student being assessed, the assessments being used, and the meaning of the collected data. Parents are required and valuable members of the ARD committee as well. Additionally, TEA has mandated that at least one member of the ARD committee must be someone who has extensive knowledge of reading and dyslexia. This could be a licensed dyslexia therapist or a certified academic language therapist. An individual who holds the most advanced dyslexia-related certification issued by an association recognized by the State Board of Education, or an individual who meets applicable training required by the State Board of Education. It will be the job of the school to make sure they have an individual on the ARD committee who can serve this role. In summary, dyslexia testing should be considered if the child has difficulty reading single words, difficulty accurately decoding real and nonsense words, slow and inaccurate or labored oral reading, difficulty learning to spell accurately, and the child's reading and spelling deficits are primarily the result of problematic phonological processing skills. Here's a quick overview of the laws that guide the evaluation and provision of services for dyslexia. Dyslexia falls within the Specific Learning Disability, or SLD, category. Children who are identified as having a disability and require specialized instruction are entitled to a public education appropriate to their needs at no cost to their families. To the greatest extent possible, children with disabilities must be educated with students who do not have disabilities and should attend the school that is closest to their home. That is the least restrictive environment, or LRE. Children with disabilities must be provided with support services by way of supplementary aids and services that assist them in benefiting educationally from their instructional program. An assessment must be completed to determine the child's needs. This may be done only with the parent's informed written consent. Due process rights ensure that no changes can be made in a child's program without prior notice to the parents. And due process provides a mechanism for the resolution of disagreements. Here are the TEA guidelines regarding dyslexia intervention. The 5 elements that must be included in effective reading instruction are phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Principles of effective intervention for students with dyslexia include all of the following: simultaneous multisensory instruction, which includes visual, auditory, kinesthetic, tactile methods used simultaneously in order to enhance memory and learning. Teacher or therapist must be trained in the program used, and the program must be implemented with fidelity. The responsibility for teaching reading and writing must be shared by classroom teachers, reading specialists, interventionists, and teachers of dyslexia programs. Evidence-based dyslexia programs and instruction are considered specially designed instruction, and the provision of these services are provided to students who are served under IDEA, which prescribes the legal requirements for special education and related services. Specially designed instruction for students with dyslexia would include structured literacy instruction designed for children with dyslexia. Structured literacy instruction should include emphasis on improving phonological awareness, phonic knowledge, and language structure. It is also recommended children receive direct and explicit instruction in reading fluency and reading comprehension. The reading instruction must be delivered with great intensity. Optimally, a child who is struggling to read should be given instruction in a group of no more than 5 to 6 students, with instruction 4 to 5 days per week for 45 to 60 minutes per session. Differentiation that does not compromise the fidelity of the program, such as adjusting the amount of information or pacing of the program, may be necessary to address students' unique needs and to promote progress among students receiving dyslexia instruction. An ARD committee must only consider deviations from the program's fidelity requirements when data collection, a student's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, or the PLAF, and other areas of the student's IEP clearly indicate the need for more intensive or supplemental supports. At Scottish Rite, we created a dyslexia intervention program called Take Flight. It is one example of an effective dyslexia intervention. It includes 230 total lessons incorporating new learning and application practice. Application lessons allow for greater flexibility and individualization of instruction to meet students' needs. Take Flight can only be provided by dyslexia therapists who have received appropriate training on the program. These therapists are trained to analyze student errors and therefore be able to individualize instruction within a small group setting to meet the needs of all students. The program, if implemented with fidelity, can typically be completed in 2 years. However, there are many circumstances under which completion of the full program is not achieved in this amount of time. Due to the critical nature of practice and application to complement learning of new information, it is more important to ensure students receive the Take Flight program in its entirety than to complete the intervention within a prescribed amount of time. If the program is not implemented with fidelity or is not completed in its entirety, student outcomes may be impacted. When teachers use a structured literacy approach for beginning readers who show signs of dyslexia, studies have shown that 50 to 90% of those kids will reach the range of average reading ability. That's encouraging, isn't it? Without high-quality instruction and intervention, early reading problems can manifest as serious reading disabilities later on. Moreover, several studies have shown that the brain's ability to change and adapt in response to experience, brain plasticity, decreases throughout the childhood years, and that certain skills are harder to acquire after a sensitive period. Therefore, the earlier the child can be identified and provided with high-quality intervention, the better. These questions will help you learn more about what your child's dyslexia teacher is using for intervention. What dyslexia intervention program are you using? How do you assess progress? How often do you assess for progress? How will you document my child's progress? How will you communicate with me regarding my child's progress? What reading level books is the child reading for connected text reading? Where can I find the fluency reading rate packets? We have included a page in your resources that references some ineffective treatments for dyslexia. If your child is found eligible as a student with dyslexia, you will review this information in an IEP or ARD meeting. When you walk into your meeting, you should have all the school documents relating to your child on hand and readily accessible. These documents are the foundation for the story of who your child is as a student and reader, what his or her strengths and weaknesses are, when he or she excels or struggles, what has helped and what has not been effective. Like a GPS in your car, it helps guide your child's story to arrive at the destination, effective instruction, that you are seeking and provides you with the necessary support to advocate for the needs of your child. Some of the things you will want to have with you include report cards, notes from teachers, examples of your child's written work, relevant graded tests, results from standardized tests, health or education assessments, all the letters or information provided to you about the upcoming meeting, notes and questions that you have made in advance of the meeting, and blank paper to take notes. Here are some people that may be in attendance at the ARD meeting. If you do not understand some of the educational jargon and acronyms, you should feel comfortable to ask for a simple translation. You may also bring someone to the meeting with you, but you will need to sign a release of confidential information. Here are some resources that may assist you in your education about dyslexia. Let's look at some information about dyslexia accommodations. Accommodations must support and be effective for a student's unique needs. Accommodations are changes to materials, actions, or techniques including the use of technology that enable students with disabilities to participate meaningfully in grade level or course instruction. It is not one size fits all. The impact of dyslexia on each individual student determines the accommodation. All accommodations requested for use by the students for statewide testing must be documented in the student's current IEP and be on the list of allowable accommodations. The same accommodations requested for testing must also be used with the student for instructional purposes in the classroom. Here are some other accommodations to consider for your child to support their reading abilities. Again, not all of these accommodations will be needed for every child. You will need to partner with the educators at your child's school to determine which are the most beneficial and that are used on a routine basis to support your child's learning. Just a reminder, your child's list of accommodations will likely change from year to year as they progress through the dyslexia intervention program and as the grade level demands change. Research now demonstrates that when children with a learning disability are given accessible instructional materials, textbooks or learning materials that are delivered in audio and/or digital formats, they can excel in school and also learn to enjoy reading. Reading with digital or ebooks and audiobooks can enrich a user's learning experience by engaging them in the context in multisensory ways. Spelling is often difficulty for children with dyslexia. Therefore, they will often need accommodations to support their spelling accuracy, written expression, and note-taking abilities. Here are some accommodations to consider when supporting spelling abilities in the classroom. Here are some digital tools to support spelling difficulties. Difficulties with written expression are often a secondary challenge children with dyslexia experience. Therefore, children with dyslexia may need accommodations to support their writing. These are some accommodations to consider when supporting a child's written expression in the classroom. It is important for your child to learn about their disability and be able to speak up for the help they need.
Self-advocacy is important because you need to be able to explain to others why you need something so that they'll be willing to give it to you. I think since I've learned to self-advocate, I have gotten most of what I need by being open and saying why and for what purpose I need my certain accommodation.
Self-advocating is you speak up for yourself, basically, and you talk to your teacher about what dyslexia is, how it affects you, and how the teacher can help.
I think that the importance of self-advocacy is really overlooked a lot of times because we are in a school setting, and that is what we're basically focusing on the self-advocacy for is school. But I like to bring in the other aspects of it. If you master this skill now, you're going to be able to utilize it and have it for the rest of your life because it's not going to limit you to school. And it's not just going to limit you to your K through 12 school. I'm sure that we can use it through college. There's going to be, I know there's going to be an instance where we're going to have it in college as we're adults in our work life. I mean, all the way through our lives.
Self-advocacy means that you're standing up for yourself. It means that you're actually talking to the teacher, letting that teacher know what you need, how to get it, and this is how I can succeed in your class, because their goal is that you succeed in their class. When people self-advocate for themselves, it lets them have a little bit more power and gives them more confidence to talk to the teacher. And even though talking to the teacher kind of sounds intimidating, it really helps.
What thoughts did you have as you were watching these students? Does your son or daughter know his or her diagnosis? Are they able to describe his or her disability? Are they able to express his or her needs? Are they able to ask for help or accommodations? Practicing this with them may help them feel more comfortable talking with their teachers at school. Here are some strategies that will help your child support their learning weaknesses. They may write the assignment down in a planner. take a picture of the assignment if they have a phone, or repeat the instructions out loud. Here are some specific things your grade schooler can say to self-advocate. I need help with directions, or it's part of my learning plan. Can you help me with a problem? Or I need help staying on track. For students in middle or high school, encourage them to explain their issues to others. It's time for them to take some of their responsibility. Make sure they know their rights. Involve them in decisions about their learning. They should be aware of their accommodations and be an active participant in their IEP meetings. They know what works best for them. Encourage them to work or volunteer. This builds independence. And plan for the future. In post-secondary situations, such as college, training, and/or work, you will not be able to step in to advocate for your adult child. As a matter of fact, colleges are not allowed to talk with you about your adult child's progress, attendance, etc. So it is very important that they are comfortable having these conversations on their own. Now, let's talk about how you can help your child at home. These tips will help make your home a good place for learning. Read, read, read. One of the most important things a parent can do for their child's education is to read to their child and/or have their child read to them. High expectations. Parents need to set high expectations for their child's behavior and learning. Praise and encouragement. When parents offer praise and encouragement, they have a positive influence on the child's motivation and confidence in becoming a successful learner. Effort. Parents need to emphasize effort as well as achievement. And routines. It is important for parents to establish family routines that include time for completing homework, completing daily chores, eating meals, engaging in physical activities, and having a regular bedtime. Create a homework plan by budgeting time, listening to your child, find a quiet place for them to focus, and turn off the TV, cell phone, or tablet. Basically, remove anything that may distract your child's attention from completing homework. Parents need to monitor their child's screen time wisely. It is important to limit the amount of time that a child spends watching television, scrolling on their phone, and/or playing on their tablets. It is also important to monitor what they are watching and/or observing on technology. Here are some guidelines from the American Academy of Physicians. I mentioned earlier that there may be secondary consequences of dyslexia. Students with dyslexia may be impacted socially and/or emotionally. He or she may feel frustrated, angry, self-conscious, or even embarrassed. Talk to him or her about the difficulties dyslexia can cause and be specific. For example, you know how you have a hard time reading signs or copying notes from the board? That's dyslexia. Acknowledge her struggles and praise hard work, even if the results aren't perfect. I understand how challenging that reading assignment was, and I'm so proud of how hard you worked on it. And help her identify specific strengths. That drawing you made of our family had such vivid colors and details. You're a great artist. You can support your child by helping them build and maintain a strong and positive self-esteem. Be a self-esteem role model. Encourage extracurricular interests. Be clear, not critical. Reframe your child's negative statements about himself. For example, if your child has dyslexia and says, "I'm stupid because I can't read," you can respond, "Reading is hard for you, but you tell great stories." Recognize that mistakes are learning experiences. Praise efforts. Celebrate accomplishments. It helps to know that there are successful people who have dyslexia. Here are some important considerations when helping a child with dyslexia. Understand that at the end of a day of reading and writing, a child with dyslexia is exhausted. Know that kids with dyslexia may have good and bad days for no apparent reason. Anticipate that it may take them much longer to do reading and writing tasks. Encourage the things he enjoys and excels at so that he feels confident in some areas. Assistive technology helps people with dyslexia accomplish academic tasks. Let's watch this video about assistive technology.
Speech to text is software that takes what you say and turns it into text on the computer. The reason it's powerful here is students often have a hard time translating what they have in their head to something that's put on paper. And typing is one of the things that gets in the way of that. So allowing the students to talk into the computer and have it typed for them assists them when they're writing papers or doing homework assignments and things like that. The main software package that we use for speech to text is Dragon Naturally Speaking. We individually train each student on Dragon.
You can talk in the mic and it takes what you're saying and it writes it down instead of you trying to spell out words. It's like a complete lifesaver. I'm very dyslexic. And when I use Dragon, it helps me a lot because I usually get lost if I have a pen and pencil. I'm in 9th grade. This is my first year here.
Software is trained to learn your accent, so training the software properly to understand them makes using the software frustration-free.
The link at the bottom of this slide provides you with resources about assistive technology. There are more and more apps that can support reading and writing. The following slides break available apps down into elementary and intermediate age and grade levels. These apps may be helpful for elementary children. These are some apps that may be helpful for older children. You may see technologies referred to as speech to text, voice recognition, or speech recognition. They all refer to technologies that can translate spoken language into digitized text or turn spoken commands into actions. Speech to text software helps students who struggle with spelling and writing by converting spoken words into typed text. Use speech recognition technology to help struggling writers and spellers get their ideas on paper. The immediacy of the dictation process reinforces the vocabulary and use of writing conventions and punctuation. These are examples of free speech-to-text tools that can be used during instruction. Text-to-speech software is often a vital resource for students with dyslexia to aid reading, promote comprehension, and enhance overall literacy skills. This technology is popular among students who have difficulty with reading, especially those who struggle with decoding. By presenting the words auditorily, the student can focus on the meaning of the words instead of spending all their brain power trying to sound out the words. Writing can be significantly impacted by dyslexia, and here are some helpful apps for writing. Learning to type can also help students with dyslexia to express themselves faster and more effectively than writing. Okay, let's return to the little girl we watched in the first video. Do you remember what we observed in the first video? Lack of confidence, physical shifting in her chair.
Anyone at home about the play until dinner time. Then he said, "Guess what, everyone? Guess what? I am going to be..." No one paid any attention to what Freddie was saying. They were too busy.
Did you see a difference? It is life-changing when a child learns how to read. It impacts their confidence and their self-esteem and prepares them to accomplish their dreams and goals. Thank you for participating in this session today. If you have any questions, please contact me using the information on this slide.